Hey guys, welcome back to Movie Talk, here to talk about Moonfall. It is god-awful. I do not recommend it. It's not even a so bad it's entertaining movie. I honestly had a headache after watching this. It was really bad. I think it's actually the worst Roland Emmerich movie I've seen. It honestly pissed me off even more than Independence Day Resurgence. And this is coming from a guy who actually liked most of his filmography, to be honest. I like Stargate. I really like Independence Day, the first one he did. I even enjoyed the Godzilla movie he did. I can understand that people say that it's the worst, one of the worst Godzilla movies of all time. I can understand that, and I do respect that, and I do accept that. But it was still an entertaining, like Jurassic Park ripoff movie for me, so I'm okay with that. It's a giant lizard terrorizing New York. I'm happy about it. I enjoyed most of The Day After Tomorrow. I really like 2012, and I still think that the best movie Roland Emmerich ever did was The Patriot with Mel Gibson. To me, that's the best movie he has ever done. 10,000 BC, I liked the effects, but I didn't care much about the story. And then he worked on a couple stinkers like Independence Day Resurgence, and now he managed to make one of the worst movies of all time, Moonfall. And I do not understand Roland Emmerich because after so many interviews and talks about him against Marvel Cinematic Universe, here's the thing. I can understand both sides, like people saying the MCU movies are derivative. They're just copying each other, copy and paste. They're not that interesting. I do understand that, and I do get it. And I do respect opinions on both sides as well, except for people like Roland Emmerich. Because after watching Independence Day Resurgence and Moonfall, I do not believe that he has the right to talk about that, about the MCU, even about Spider-Man. He recently talked about, oh, they're making too many Spider-Man movies and all that. And I'm like, listen, dude, you're just making the same exact movie all over again. You're copying yourself. You do not get to talk. You're not Martin Scorsese. You do not get to talk. So that's my rant against him. I cannot believe it. He cannot back himself up. I'm sorry. Moonfall just proved you wrong. And it's so hard to talk about the positives in this because there's really not that many. I guess you could say the acting is fine for what it was. I mean, Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, Michael Pena, and the others, and John Bradley did their jobs. That's the best I could say about it. Unfortunately, the dialogue, the writing is just garbage. So the actors tried their best to sound as serious and as funny as possible, and I guess it's serviceable. But that's all you can say about that. John Bradley, I would say, is the highlight of the movie because his character ends up being likable to me. But I can understand if people thought that he's incredibly annoying. The character, I mean. So I can understand that, but for what he did, I thought he was definitely the highlight, at least the character that you would root for the most. But again, I can understand people hating him. And originally, the character is supposed to be played by Josh Gad, and I can definitely see that. Like a Josh Gad or Dan Fogler type of actor, I can definitely see that. And yeah, John Bradley, I thought, delivered the best he could. It's just that the characters and the writing are really bad. And the visual effects, here's the thing. The animators did the best they can. They really did. You can tell that this is a modern 2022 computer animation. You know, so at least on, and it's serviceable. But whoever thought of the idea of trying to copy Man of Steel, trying to copy the blue filter and put it throughout the entire movie, which makes the visual effects look muted and dull, is an idiot. I'm guessing it's Roland Emmerich. I don't know, but yeah, that was a terrible idea because you could not appreciate the disaster scenes. You could not appreciate the CGI. Because with this blue filter, especially since a lot of the visual effects takes place at night, it just makes things look darker and it makes things look also more muted, so you can't appreciate the little details. 2012, a movie that came out in 2009, is still one of the best visual effects movie I've seen to date, especially since there's so much detail in all the disaster scenes. Like, there's so many particle effects, and it's not the same particles, you know? Debris going this way, that way, and different kinds of debris. And also, there's so many things happening in the background, like people running for their lives, people trying to get to their cars and they get smushed out by their cars, or people trying to hang on for dear life on a building that's about to crash down. People are in an airplane screaming their heads off. You know, there's so much details like that. If you freeze any part of the disaster scenes in 2012, you could make out so much. The animators and the modelers and the texturers and the lighters, they did such a great job with that. Here, it's like all the work they tried to do gets diminished because of the stupid ass filter. So you can't appreciate the work that they did. And also, the big problem is a lot of these disaster scenes are the same ones that you've seen before. They're not really unique, even though the idea of the moon crashing into the earth is such a fun idea to see on the big screen. But nope, it's not interesting. It's not unique. You've seen all this before. You think a Mad Max style car chase through the snow where earthquakes are happening. There's debris of the moon falling into the earth and they're burning. They're like meteorites. And then you have these crazy guys trying to shoot at this one car. All this is happening at the same time. The idea of that sounds awesome. The execution is terrible. And sure, cities get blown up, but you've seen this before in Independence Day Resurgence, even Godzilla. You've seen all this before. Heck, the recent disaster movie where all cities are getting torn up and stuff, Geostorm, was a better movie than this in terms of visuals and even the story. And the story was freaking insanely stupid, but it was entertaining. Oh, man. So that's the problem. Like, if the disaster scenes are not that interesting and the acting was just serviceable but nothing remarkable, then what do you have for a movie like this? What are you going to do for about 2 hours? It's just boring. So what Roland Emmerich tries to do, he tries to overcompensate by making the story insane, but not in a good way, in a horrible way. And it honestly felt like fan fiction at a time. It honestly felt like this is the idea he had for a sequel for Independence Day Resurgence. But after he realized that, one, the critics hate it, the audience hate it, and the box office was awful for it, it didn't make a lot of money, so he decided to scrap the idea for a third Independence Day movie and decide to make a new franchise. He wrote the story down. He just changed the names of certain things and places. And yep, that's it. That's Moonfall. And it's supposed to be a franchise. Yeah, that ending was terrible. Like, you thought, oh, this is it. It's just a one-off. Nope. He really wants to make a franchise. And I hope he doesn't, because I don't want to see a sequel to this thing. So I have to go into full spoilers for this to discuss all the bullshit about this movie. So if you're interested in it, you probably would have seen it already, but it's doing horrible at the box office. Right now, Death on the Nile came out, and I think it's winning at the box office. I gotta check out Box Office Mojo later today. So, yeah, I do not recommend this. It gave me a headache. A movie that gives me a headache is a very bad movie. So, yeah, I do not recommend this. There should have been a warning sign at the beginning saying, you will get a headache. Your brain will explode. You could possibly die. That's how bad it is. All right, Moonfall. Let's spoil this shit. It starts off in the year 2011. And it has Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and another astronaut whose name you cannot remember. They are fixing up the shuttle, and it's basically ripping off the scene from Gravity, the one with George Clooney and Sandra Bullock. So remember that scene in Gravity where it shows the above the Earth, and they're working on the space shuttle, fixing a couple things, and music is playing in the background, and they're just chit chatting. Yeah, it's copying that. And then disaster strikes, and the shuttle is out of control. There's debris everywhere. Yep, it's the scene from Gravity. It's almost exactly like it. It's like a carbon copy of it. Unfortunately, it's not as interesting. So yeah, the astronaut gets separated from Patrick Wilson, and he ends up dying. And it turns out there's this giant swarm of nanobots that have AI or something like that. And here's the thing. I don't know why it does this a few times throughout the movie, where people keep saying, "What is that?" And the thing they're looking at, it's like very close to them. Like, they didn't even notice it before. Like, they were staring off into the distance for a long period of time, but then a few seconds happen and they're like, what is that? So I'm like, why do you keep doing that? It reminds me of Dragon Wars. I'm not sure if you guys seen that movie. There's a scene where there are two guards on top of this gate, and their job is to keep looking out into the distance to see if there's some enemies coming. And one guard is like, hey, what is that? And then the next shot shows a giant army right there, like millions of soldiers, dinosaurs, and dragons with cannons and stuff like that. It's just right in the open. It's not even like covered by fog or anything. No, they're just right in the open, and they're like right there, right outside the gates. And I was like, what is that? Same thing here. Like, every time they say, what is that to the swarm is already there. So that's why I thought that was stupid. So Patrick Wilson is like the only pilot who has the skill of maneuvering a shuttle without any power. So the shuttle was spinning the entire time. So he manages to, turn the valves so the shuttle could stop spinning. So that's why this beginning was very important. That has to happen in the year 2011. They can't just show the movie in the present. They have to show what happened 10 years ago. Ugh. So Patrick Wilson sees all of this, and he witnessed all of it. And it turns out that his helmet does have a camera. So he captured all this footage too. And he sees that there's a hole in the moon. But when he comes back to Earth, he saved Halle Berry. He managed to survive as well. NASA's like, oh no, you're crazy. Due to your negligence, you're the reason why the astronaut died. And they even told Halle Berry, do you really believe a Soliford did this? Or do you believe Patrick Wilson? You were unconscious the entire time. So Halle Berry just didn't believe in Patrick Wilson. Even though she would know that he would not make this shit up, but she thinks that he's delusional all of a sudden. Yeah, so they know each other for a while, and she just thinks he's delusional, and she's been knocked unconscious the entire time. What a good friend, right? And Patrick Wilson's is focused on Patrick Wilson's family, and he has a son named Sonny, and he does want to move to New Jersey. Of course, that had to be important to say, right? I don't want to move to New Jersey. I hate it. That had to be there? Really? Anyway, and then it cuts to the present, where we focus on this character whose name I forgot. He's played by John Bradley, and he is... Oh, man. Here's the problem with Roland Emmerich movies, that these are just the stereotypical Roland Emmerich characters. Like John Bradley, he's the geek. He's the smart guy who knows everything happening before the other smart guys do. Before even the government does. So he is basically David from Independence Day, played by Jeff Goldblum. And he's also a bit of a goofball. So he's very similar to like Woody Harrelson from 2012. Who's also a guy who knows everything before the government does, or who knows exactly what the government is doing, stuff like that. And John Bradley is not a scientist, he's not a doctor. He posed as a janitor to get information about the moon's orbits, and also he's a worker at a burger joint. So Patrick Wilson, he's basically John Cusack's character from 2012. Like he's a disgraced scientist. Well, in this case, a disgraced astronaut. Well, astronauts are considered scientists anyway, right? So he's a disgraced astronaut. People think he's a bum. He lost his job. He lost his family. He's divorced. His children don't love him or respect him even. So yeah, he is John Cusack's character from 2012. Thank you, Roland Emmerich. You are so original. Even Michael Pena, he is playing the husband of the ex-wife of Patrick Wilson. His character is basically the same as I forgot the character's name from 2012. I think his name is Tom, the one who's the I don't remember. Was it the boyfriend or the fiance or the husband of Amanda Peet in that movie? They're basically the same character, even to their fates. So yeah, Michael Pena had to die. And I don't understand. I don't know the deal with Roland Emmerich. Is he in that situation? Is he like the John Cusack, Patrick Wilson type of character? Like he got divorced from his family. He wished that the significant other of the person, even if they're not an asshole, even if they're nice people who actually love their children and love their wives, they had to die because so they could get back together in the end, right? I think that's Roland Emmerich's thing, to be honest. He really hates divorce. Oh boy. So Patrick Wilson was supposed to go to the Griffith Observatory to talk to children about being an astronaut. John Bradley happened to be there. So he tried to give him the papers. He threw it at him, but Patrick Wilson threw them in the trash. This is very important. And at this point, John Bradley knew that the moon is out of orbit and is coming down towards the Earth. So he happens to know this like an hour or two before NASA even did. So Halle Berry is working at NASA, and here's the thing I thought was going to be very interesting, but ends up being very disappointing. So in the 2011 sequence, she talked about just getting married, and she's spending her honeymoon in space. So when it cuts to the present, it turns out that she does have a son, and she checked up on him to see if he's okay, and then she goes down to the kitchen, about to leave, and then a woman comes into the room, an Asian woman. So at this and they were talking to each other about, going to work, here's your coffee, and she said, I'll see you later, take care of our son, her son. So at that time, I thought that Halle Berry was in an interracial same-sex relationship, and at that point I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool. I'm digging this. You know what, Roland Emmerich, this is nice. You don't really show that much of this. But that's not what it was. No, they're not a couple. They're not in a relationship. Heck, at first I thought they were married to each other because that's the information I was gathering. No, they're not. Because it turns out later, when the Asian woman gets introduced to another character, it turns out that she's a foreign exchange student. You don't know this until much later in the movie. This is not your introduction to her. You find this out later. And I could not believe it. So the only Asian character in this entire movie, the only Asian, and she is a foreign exchange student. And you do not know this until later in the movie. This is because when you first see her, the way she was talking to Halle Berry, you do not think, oh, she's a nanny. Oh, she's a foreign exchange student. You do not think that. So that's why I was so confused when it was pointed out about that. So yeah, Halle Berry divorced from her husband. Her husband is a general in the army who takes care of the military operations and all that. So she gets the information that the moon is out of orbit and it's heading towards the Earth. And at this point, they estimated that it's going to be 3 weeks until the Earth is destroyed by the moon. So John Bradley tried to tell this to Patrick Wilson. Then he talks to his mother, who has dementia, unfortunately, and he gets the idea that he should spread it through the internet so everyone would know what the hell's going on. So, yeah, he did that. NASA was trying to keep it quiet, but he spread it through the internet, and yeah, everyone knows that the Earth is going to be destroyed by the moon. So NASA decides to send a shuttle as soon as possible within like a day or two. So they sent the shuttle all the way to the moon to investigate this giant hole that's about 25 kilometers deep. So they checked it out, and it turns out that the swarm was there. They noticed what was going on, so they killed the 3 astronauts in that shuttle. And the ranking officer over Halle Berry decides to quit, so he gives her his clearance so she could check up more information about what the hell's going on. And when she goes to this base to check up all the declassified information, it turns out that Donald Sutherland is there. So if you've seen the trailer, you pretty much saw his scene. It's basically a cameo. He does not show up at all after this. He just in it for like 3 to 5 minutes, just talking about what the hell was going on. So it turned out that NASA actually covered all this up. Not just 2011, but back when it first started, around when Neil Armstrong went to the moon. So he's like, oh, remember that 2-minute blackout? Yeah, it's because we discovered that entities and we don't want people to know what the hell is going on. So they covered it up. They even said that they tried to make Patrick Wilson crazy. And it turned out they did have a helmet cam footage from Patrick Wilson that actually showed the swarm. But they decided not to show it to anybody, and they said that Patrick Wilson is crazy. So that was the thing. Does Patrick Wilson even know that there was camera footage or not? Because he should have known that there would have been footage from his camera. But during the hearing or something like that, they never talked about it. So I'm wondering if that's a plot hole or something. I don't know. But during this whole time, Patrick Wilson's son grew up, and he's a delinquent. He was getting chased by the cops, so he had to be sent to jail, and he has to stay in jail, even though the judge had to run away because he heard that the Earth was going to be destroyed. They could have just let Sonny out, but no, he had to stay in jail, even though the Earth is gonna die. And that's the thing. Do police officers still want to work at their jobs, even when the world is coming to an end? So couldn't anyone try to break out and stuff like that? I don't know how this all works. So at this point, it's already the end of the world. As soon as they announced that the Earth was going to die, there's chaos everywhere. There's riots. There are cult leaders. People are trying to get all the Purell, all the water, all the toilet paper, everything. Oh, boy. And it's already chaos. But here's the problem. You cannot tell about the passage of time at times. So when Patrick Wilson was dealing all this shit with Sonny, and then he realized that John Bradley may be right, so he wanted to check up the papers that he threw away in the trash. So he goes back to the Griffith Observatory, and he's checking up all the He's checking up the dumpsters, and the security guard was there, and he's like, oh, you should be lucky that the sanitation workers haven't been here all week. And I was like, it's been a week? It's been 1 week already? I honestly thought it's like the day after. What the hell? It's been a week already. Wow. So the security guard found the papers. It just happened to be in front of the dumpster the entire time. So, okay. And Patrick Wilson tries to meet up with John Bradley, who's having this conference in like a hotel or something. The problem is that I don't exactly know the location of this. I assume if Patrick Wilson went to Griffith Observatory, I assume that it's still on the West Coast. But for some reason, the way this town is, it looks like it's honestly on the east side compared to the West Coast. I don't know, because some of parts honestly look more like Louisiana than, you know, like San Francisco or Los Angeles. So that's why it looked a little off to me. I can't even tell if that was supposed to be like the West Coast. So at that point, there's floods coming in and also a giant tidal wave. And there's these kooky characters like this guy who's always high named Ziggy. Of course, you have to have someone like that in, a Roland Emmerich movie. And and later on, Halle Berry decides to get Patrick Wilson back because he's the only person who knows how to fly a shuttle without any power. Because it turns out that the swarm is attracted to anything that emits power. So she gets him and John Bradley. They are working on this shuttle, which was found in a museum, and they're trying to fix it up. And also, they're going to plant the bomb once they get to the moon. And it turns out that the U.S. Decides to send nukes at the very last minute if everything goes wrong, if the operation doesn't go smoothly. So they have 2 time limits with that one. And Sonny managed to get out of jail. He meets up with Patrick Wilson, and he still kind of resents him at first, even though it's Patrick Wilson trying to get him out of jail in the first place. Why doesn't Sonny give him that much gratitude at first? I don't know. Why did he have to be a dick? I don't get it. Anyway, I do not blame the actor who plays Sonny. I just don't care about the character. Like, he's in jail, he's out of jail, I don't care. And unfortunately, the movie has to focus so much on Sonny that every time he tries to get redeemed, it doesn't seem earned, and also, you don't really care. A lot of these characters you just don't care about. So that's a problem with this movie. Like, eventually, when they split off into 2 teams, the people who have to survive on Earth, and Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and John Bradley trying to save everyone, you don't care. You know, you kind of wish that this movie focused on one group more, like make the dialogue better, make the writing better, make the stakes higher and stuff like that. So it would be more entertaining. But no, because you have 2 stories, basically, 2 journeys, and they feel mediocre because you don't care about it, then you're just wasting your time just watching 2 different people, 2 different groups of people. So that was a problem. So at this point, there was an earthquake which caused an accident with one of the engines, so the shuttle won't be able to lift off easily. But it turns out if they wait for some time, that the gravity would shift for the Earth, so the gravity will make the shuttle much easier to reach the atmosphere and eventually arrive at the moon. But at this point, Halle Berry already told almost everyone to go home. So all they have is like a few soldiers who know how to fly a helicopter, 2 technicians who were working with Halle Berry the entire movie. They were working with her the entire time. Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, and also John Bradley. They decide to go into the shuttle by themselves. And Sonny and the Asian woman who's a foreign exchange student and Halle Berry's son, they decide to go in a truck together so they could try to go all the way to Colorado, where Halle Berry's ex-husband is. But my problem is that they should have drove away much sooner, but instead they decide to wait like the last 2 hours, which was a very, very stupid idea, because they know that there's supposed to be a gravity wave coming at that point. So here's the problem with this whole scene. So there's a gravity wave coming. Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and John Bradley are in the shuttle preparing for liftoff. The 2 technicians are still at the command center. And they told Halle Berry, just go, 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 lift off, lift off, lift off. And they're trying to escape. They're trying to run. So here's the thing. The 2 technicians, it never seemed like they are planning to sacrifice themselves. It never seemed like they want to die or anything. They do want to live. So it never seemed like they were there for sacrifice. So they did their job. They escape from the building. They go into the helicopter, and the helicopter is in the air, trying to get to safety, but it ends up being swallowed up by the gravity wave, and everyone dies. And it was a very shocking moment. It was a very shocking scene. Because you didn't think that, they are planning to be sacrificed or something like that. No, they're just dead. And unfortunately, from what it looks like, I don't think Halle Berry her character even cares that they're dead. Or does she even know that they're dead? I assume that she saw it because it showed her reaction, but it's like she didn't care. Or it was just a bad angle. I cannot tell. So yeah, the 2 technicians who were there the entire time, they were doing their jobs. They were helping out, figuring out the calculations, and they're the only ones left. While everyone left to go home to be with their loved ones, they're just dead. it was very anticlimactic. So I don't know if Roland Emmerich wanted to do that. It was so weird. It wasn't even like meant for shock value, like in like Jurassic World, where the babysitter woman, who deserved none of it, honestly, gets eaten up by the pterodon, who eventually gets eaten up by the giant. I forgot what that giant fish dinosaur was called. But yeah, she ends up getting killed off by that. The mosasaur. Yeah, it was the mosasaur. It wasn't like that. So it was very, very weird. So it cuts back to the shuttle. Everything is going haywire, and they manage to get engulfed by the gravity wave, but they manage to get out of it and go into the atmosphere. During this time, for some goddamn reason, Sonny decides to stop the truck because he, the foreign exchange student, and Halle Berry's son, they want to see if the shuttle goes into the atmosphere safely. But here's the problem. The gravity wave was heading in one direction, and in that direction was the command center, and then the shuttle, and then Sonny. It's not like the gravity wave was just gonna stop what it's doing after it the shuttle reaches safety. No, the gravity wave was still coming. So after the shuttle goes into the atmosphere, Sonny looks at the gravity wave, and it turns out it was coming towards them, and they're like, "Oh shit! Get back in the truck! Get back in the truck!" It was so stupid. It was really stupid. Whew. So, so Sonny and the other two managed to make it out okay, but it was still dumb of them to stay there. So they eventually go around Colorado, and they meet up with Michael Pena and Patrick Wilson's ex-wife and Michael Pena's two daughters. So they meet up with them, and unfortunately, this whole movie is basically a giant Lexus advertisement because Michael Pena sells Lexus cars. So we have to show off one of these in every single angle, trying to treat it like the Ashton Marston from the James Bond movies. Seriously. Oh my God. You see every single angle of this car. Like, they have to shoot it like it's a giant commercial. It's horrible. Yeah, so Sonny is upset at Michael Pena, but Michael Pena actually does care about Sonny. At first, the movie made it seem like he's an asshole, like he's gonna be an asshole who betrays Patrick Wilson's family, and you wish that he dies, but he doesn't do that. He never did that. He actually cares about his wife. He actually cares about Sonny and his two daughters. He never thought about leaving them behind or anything. At first, I thought he was gonna be like a Iona Grufford's character from San Andreas. Like, at first, it didn't seem like he's an asshole, and but it turns out he's a coward and an asshole who's willing to, only save himself and not save others. He's willing to kill others off. No, Michael Pena's character is nothing like that at all. So it was a bit strange that the Roland Emmerich is trying to do it that way. It's weird. So the whole family decides to get oxygen tanks because I don't know who told them, or did they know or something like that, that the oxygen levels on the Earth is going to be diminished. So if they do not have oxygen tanks, they could actually suffocate to death. So they decide to go to the firefighter station. And right before this, it turns out that while on the way to meet up with Michael Pena, Sonny's truck gets stopped, pulled over by these other group of people, like 3 people, and they held them up at gunpoint. So they stole the truck and stole the kid's backpack, which happens to have the cell phone, so they could call Halle Berry's ex-husband to let them inside the base. So they meet up with these guys again, and Sonny had a gun that Patrick Wilson gave him, and he held all these bad guys at gunpoint and managed to get the oxygen tanks and everything inside the Lexus. So right after this, these 3 guys decide to try to chase down after them because they really want the oxygen tanks. And I was like, you guys, the end of the world is happening. Why do you guys have to be assholes? I mean, yes, I understand it's like the Last of Us scenario, but can't you guys just talk about it? Like, hey, listen, I don't want to kill anyone. You shouldn't kill anyone. we just gotta live, okay? We can survive if we help each other. They're like, no, fuck it, we're just gonna kill each other off. So we have to have this Mad Max Fury Road style through the snow in the Lexus, getting chased by about 3 different cars while there's an earthquake happening and giant debris from the moon is crashing into the earth. So it's just flames all over the place, and other cars and fire trucks are getting sucked into the air because of the gravity is getting shifting and all that stuff. So seriously, the idea sounds awesome. It's just that the execution of it, you don't appreciate it. It's just not fun. Because you've seen it before. You've seen this before. If you've seen 2012, there's a limousine chase where the limousine was going through the streets of LA while there's, earthquakes and fires and buildings crashing on top of them. You've seen that already. Also, there's the camper chase in Yellowstone where the camper is trying to avoid the fireballs coming from the volcano. Yeah, you've seen these scenes before in 2012. You just get a copy of them here. It's like a copy of a copy of a copy, so it's not as impressive and it's not as interesting. But it should be, and it's a shame. So the 3 bad guys eventually die because one of them gets hit by the fire truck and the other one gets crashes into some floating debris. So the Lexus does crash, but everyone's fine. So they put on their oxygen tanks and they decide to head up to the tunnel they see above them. So if something bad happens, they could be safe inside the tunnel. So that's the group on the Earth. Also, there's this one part where Sonny, Halle Berry's son, and also the foreign exchange student, they happen to be in like a campground or something with other campers with other families, but because of the gravity shifting, everyone's getting sucked up into the air, into the sky. So everyone except those 3 died. And again, it doesn't seem interesting. So now we got cut back to Patrick Wilson's team, and they refuel at the space station, and they try to blow up the swarm, but the swarm, it turned out that the swarm didn't go for the bait, so they almost get killed. So they decide to turn off all the electronics, and there's this very lame joke about John Bradley taking pictures, and he's like, what? It's on airplane mode. And I was like, who the hell cares? He's taking pictures with a phone. It doesn't matter about the internet connection or anything. Who cares if it's on airplane mode? He's just taking pictures. It's dumb. Anyway, so it doesn't matter anyway because they had to break his phone because he couldn't turn it off in time. So Patrick Wilson decides to go down the 25-kilometer hole, and it turns out that John Bradley was right the entire time. The moon is a megastructure. It's basically a giant space station. There's like a red dwarf star in the middle of this powering the moon, and there's like a giant base. There's like farms, a lot of resources, a lot of ships, giant cannons. So yeah, the moon is a space station. It's basically the Death Star. And they tried to fight the swarm, but the swarm was too much. And then there was another entity, and it managed to help save the shuttle, even though it was almost destroyed. And it provided enough oxygen for Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and John Bradley. And Patrick Wilson gets a bit abducted, but not in a bad way. So he gets sent into this room, and the AI of the space station decides to reveal itself and does the mind meld thing, gives Patrick Wilson information by making like a digital construct of Sonny, and it rips off the scene from Man of Steel where Jor-El was telling Kal-El about the origins of Krypton and what Zod is doing and stuff like that, and the world engines and everything. Yeah, pretty much the same scene here. This is where the bullshit really, really lands. You know, it's much worse than before. So the AI says that the creators of the moon, the creators of the space station, the creators of Earth, basically, are humans. Millions and millions and millions of years ago. Yep, our ancestors are humans. Millions and millions and millions of years ago. And their technology is far more advanced than we have today. They're like Wakanda from Black Panther, millions and millions and millions of years ago. And they look exactly like us. So it reminds me of Prometheus. DNA match, 100% human. Oh boy. So yeah, they made these giant big cities with these fantastic machines millions of years ago. And also, they created advanced AI, and apparently there were no wars. There was never a war. Everything was peaceful. Millions and millions of years ago. So the AI is pissed off because it doesn't want to be a slave to humanity. So they break out their glass cages, and also they merge together and start killing off humanity. And it turns out that the human race created the moon, which managed to create the Earth. Because the moon is the giver of life. Because it's a giant space station. They gave resources and all that shit. So the Earth is formed, and obviously we didn't evolve from apes or anything, right? Because we evolved from our ancestors, which were human. Oh boy. Yeah, it's just all over the place. So Patrick Wilson is getting all this information in his head, and he's telling that John Bradley was right the whole time, and it turns out aliens didn't create us, it was humans. So it felt like Interstellar at the same time too, like, these people from the future are actually us, who's giving us the information and shit. It's just ripping off so many things, you know? It's ripping off like Lucy, it's ripping off Interstellar. It's not interesting. Oh my God, it sucks. It really does. So Patrick Wilson decides to, try to blow up the swarm again. And the AI of the space station managed to upgrade the space shuttle and upgrade the bomb. So yeah, it can do that. It can upgrade things. Why didn't it try to fight off against the swarm before? I don't know. Maybe they do need someone to pilot it, but why can't you make your own AI, or make a robot, or make a cyborg or android, or something, to fly your spaceships and try to destroy the swarm yourselves? Why do you need a human to do it? I don't get it. You could have done this yourself. You managed to create spaceships and make bombs, and apparently upgrade them. Why couldn't you do that yourself, you selfish pricks? Anyway, so Patrick Wilson has to save the day. So he's he's being chased by the swarm, and it turns out that the giant cannons are still active on the space station. So they're trying to help out Patrick Wilson, John Bradley, and Halle Berry. They're like boom, 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 and it looks exactly like the scene from Matrix Revolutions when the swarm of Sentinels goes into Zion, and you see the giant turrets trying to shoot at the swarm. It looks exactly the same. I cannot believe it. If anything, the Wachowskis should sue Roland Emmerich for stealing, for copying that. Seriously, it's like one of those Chinese knockoffs. Or it's plagiarism. Seriously, it's blatant. It's really, and also not just that, the swarm. Not only does it look like the swarm of Sentinels from Matrix Revolutions, but because they're like little tiny particles and stuff like that, it looks like the swarm of little nanomachines that you see that made like the baby face thing, the baby machine at the end of Matrix Revolutions as well, when it was talking to Neo. And not just that, it looks a lot like the swarm of tentacles that was trying to fight off Superman that came off the World Engine above the Indian Ocean in Man of Steel. It looks exactly like that too. So Roland Emmerich is just ripping all that off. So it was really, really horrible. So, and Patrick Wilson's like, okay, I'm gonna sacrifice myself, so I have to detonate the bomb. Someone has to stay behind. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I thought the bomb was upgraded. You're telling me that someone still has to stay behind and set off the bomb? You're telling me that the stupid AI of the space station cannot upgrade it enough where people can remote detonate it? Someone has to be within an inch of the bomb to set it off? Are you kidding me? What kind of upgrade is this? This is a horrible upgrade. It's not even an upgrade. So while Halle Berry and Patrick Wilson are yelling at each other, arguing at each other, John Bradley decides to sacrifice himself. So this moment did grab me. It did get to me because he is honestly the only character that you could actually give a shit about. And I'm a sucker for characters doing sacrifices. So it actually got to me, this moment. But it was ruined by the end anyway. But still, it got to me. So John Bradley stayed behind with the bomb. He detonated, killed himself, and also killed the swarm. And we had to rip off the scene from Independence Day where Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum had to escape the explosion from the spaceship. So yeah, exactly that. Halle Berry has to pilot the ship and has to escape the explosion before they all die. So yep, there's that. And back on Earth. So Michael Pena, his two daughters, his wife, and Sonny, the foreign exchange student, and Halle Berry's son, as a group, they have oxygen tanks on, and they're heading towards the tunnel. They're on this bridge, which is not really long, because people can run it within like 15 seconds. So yeah, within 15 seconds, they could go from point A to point B. So it's really not that long. But Michael Pena's, one of his daughters, I believe it's the youngest, her oxygen tank was getting low in oxygen. So he decides to give up his so she can survive. So he was sacrificing himself. But the way this was edited, the way this was shown, it didn't make sense because Michael Pena was like, don't look back, just keep going forward, go to your mom, and he's slowly suffocating to death. He's losing oxygen, and then he collapses, and then he dies. So then it shows that the daughter meets up with the mother, and the mother's like, hey, where's your father? Where's Michael Pena? And she's like, he's all the way back there. Here's the problem with this. They were as a group the whole time, but for some reason, they're separated at this point. And they did a horrible job. Like, you have 7 people in your group, and 2 of them are stayed behind because of some kind of error. You guys never look behind you just to see what the hell's going on? Like, you just think about yourselves the entire time? I mean, aren't you... Oh my god, these guys are selfish, blind assholes. I'm sorry. So at this point, the mother's like, oh no, I have to go back. And Sonny's like, no, I'm gonna go look. You gotta trust me. And then disaster strikes. Debris falls on top of the bridge. Sonny gets separated from the family. And the foreign exchange student is like, no, don't worry, I'll go find Sonny. So she finds Sonny. He's pinned under a tree. And with the help of the gravity, the tree managed to move off of Sonny. And the foreign exchange student and Sonny, they are running across the bridge so they could reunite with the other people. So they never found Michael Pena's body. Michael Pena is dead. They never found his body. Even though he's on the bridge. He was on the bridge. He was right there. It was just a straight line. All they have to do is get to it, but no, he's dead. So Sonny trying to find Michael Pena meant nothing because, you know, I guess it was like a participation award or something like that. Oh, I'm gonna try to find him. Gets hit by a tree. Which makes you... And here's the problem. Before the disaster strikes, when the daughter tells the mother, Michael, Daddy's that way, the oxygen came back. The oxygen came back so they could breathe without the oxygen tanks. Man, Michael Pena had some bad timing, huh? So what you're telling me is that if Michael Pena hold his breath for like 30 seconds, he could have lived? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Oh my god. It's like The Mist. If they waited like 30 seconds, they all could have been saved. If you haven't seen The Mist with Thomas Jane, watch it. I'm sorry if I spoiled it, but you probably don't know what I'm talking about anyway. So yeah, watch The Mist if you haven't seen it. Great movie. CGI is a little wonky, but Honestly, it doesn't really matter because the creature designs were pretty cool, and also the story is good, the acting is good, everything, almost everything about that movie is good. The CGI is a bit dated, but for its time and also the designs of them, you can accept that. So back to Moonfall. So yeah, Michael Pena's dead, and Halle Berry and Patrick Wilson, they managed to get back to the Earth, and they have to rip off Day After Tomorrow because there's a shot of the Chrysler Building. It was pulled away from New York City, and it was thrown all the way to Colorado. So it's surrounded by the snow, and it was covered by snow as well. And it looks like the exact same thing that you've seen from Day After Tomorrow. Ugh. So, everyone reunites. It's basically the ending of Independence Day where they're all celebrating, woo, we saved the Earth. Even though it just reminds me of that scene from Man of Steel where Jenny comes from the rubble and she's looking at Superman and she's like, he saved us. But in the background, you saw the destruction of Metropolis. Same thing here. Oh, we saved the Earth. Yeah, everything's destroyed. The Earth is fucked. Here's the thing. The moon was so close to touch the Earth. Okay? It needed a few seconds, then the Earth would be destroyed. That's how close the moon was to the Earth. Everything is destroyed. You can't say, oh, we saved the Earth when everything is screwed over. Everything. Oh boy. And, oh yeah, it turned, during this time, there was actually another team where the ex-husband of Halle Berry, because he's supposed to launch the nukes, but he decides not to because he really believes Halle Berry can, save them all. I guess he's dead. Like, everyone at that base died because rubble, the whole base collapses upon itself, and we don't see what happens to them right after, so I assume they're dead because they never showed the general again. So yeah, that was pointless. And after this, you would think that the movie would just end, but no, it just keeps on going. So it goes back to the moon, inside the space station, inside the megastructure, and John Bradley's consciousness gets uploaded to the AI of the moon. So the AI was talking to the moon, and it takes the form of his mother and the cat, and she's like, "Great job, you did a wonderful job." And he's like, "Where am I?" "Oh, you're in the moon. In the you got uploaded." And he's like, "Wicked, that's so cool." And she's like, "Yeah, we gotta do more work." And he's like, "For what?" Then end credits. There's no scene after that. That's just it. And it wants to make a franchise. It wants to get a sequel. It's really bad. And I honestly don't get it. Like, Roland Emmerich has no right to talk about that, about the MCU and stuff like that. And yes, for other directors, I can understand. I can understand people's opinions on both sides for if the MCU is being derivative, it's copying itself and all that stuff. But when a guy copies his own movies and talks that kind of shit, I don't like it. He's a hypocrite. I'm sorry, he is. He cannot talk about that. And I'm not like an MCU defender or anything. There are certain movies that I do not like from the MCU. So, and I'm being honest about that. But I can always look forward to the good things, So I loved Spider-Man No Way Home, and I can't wait to see what else they could come up with. I liked Eternals, and I can understand people hating it, but I liked it. And I'm excited to see Blade for the future, and I'm interested in Moon Knight. So yeah, I kind of understand both sides, but I gotta say this. I do not like Captain Marvel much, and I do not like Black Widow, but I'll watch it way more than this. That's how bad this movie is. Ugh. So, the worst movies of the MCU, I could watch way more than this. That's how bad this movie is. I don't like it. It's not, it's so bad it's entertaining. It's just bad. And I was very disappointed. I was hoping for it to be fun, but it isn't. Yeah, so that's all I can say. I don't recommend it. All right, that's it for Moonfall. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Later.